whenever I have the opportunity to discuss film noir with a contemporary filmmaker, I love to take advantage of that, especially when they've made a film set in the classic period, or when I understand that they acknowledge somewhat their debt to classic noir films. So it's really a thrill to be able to do that tonight. And I think it's also a thrill for our guest to do that here tonight in Chicago, because Chicago has a very special place in his heart. And with that, I want to bring to the stage to help introduce our first movie tonight, ladies and gentlemen, Carl Franklin. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. This is fantastic. I mean, really, this is
Good,
what
right?
it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is
and
fantastic.
we're going to see Devil in a Blue Dress in 35 millimeter in this theater. Yeah. Okay, now I vamped for you there. Explain to people why Chicago holds a special place for you.
Actually, it has to do with my film, One False Move. We shot it for a production company called IRS Media. And after having promised the producer that it would get a theatrical release, you know, they kind of then revealed that no, actually it was going to be one of those ones that they were going to send straight to video. And Jesse Beaton, the producer, got it booked in the Palm Springs Film Festival, where Ann Thompson saw it, and got it booked in the Seattle Film Festival, where John Hartle saw it, and got it to Sheila Benson, who sent it to Roger Ebert, who took it aboard a floating film festival in the Caribbean, and he became a champion of the movie. And he and Gene Siskel were our only marketing, and so. And so a film that was only supposed to play a couple of weekends ended up, and in 3 cities, ended up playing 51 markets and ended up being kind of played throughout the summer. And it was all because those guys went out and basically were, I get a little choked up because they...
Yeah, well, and
you know.
And that's also, that was very good, Carl, because now all those people who came just to see Devil in a Blue Dress, they're all going to stick around, right, to watch One False Move. Because as much as I love Devil in a Blue Dress, I'm going to tell you that One False Move is one of the best crime movies made in this country in the last 50 years. I mean, it is fantastic. So definitely stick around for that. And so obviously One False Move got you in a position where you were able to go Hollywood and make this film. So set us up with this. I had read a lot of those Walter Mosley, Easy Rollins books. Did you know that Walter Mosley was Bill Clinton's favorite author?
Yeah, I did at the time, actually. That was something that we heard, and they were making comparisons between him and John Kennedy. And, of course, Ian Fleming had been John Kennedy's favorite author. And so we thought, you know, but.
Thought you had it made, yeah. Okay, but I was curious because I just learned this the other day that the project was already underway when you got involved, right?
Well, actually, it was a whole different regime at Universal. They were developing it, but they had led Walter down kind of a bad path. In fact, they had combined the character of Easy and Mouse, and so Mouse wasn't in the script because they wanted Easy to be more take charge, like in the more traditional kind of a Hollywood, you know, leading man.
There wasn't enough psychopath in him, in other words.
Was not enough psychopath in him, you know, not enough kick-ass, you know. So what happened was that Jonathan Demme was at TriStar and had a deal there. Denzel was at TriStar, his deal was there. Jonathan was interested in those books. Denzel was interested in playing the character. TriStar was interested in doing something with me, and Jonathan came and said, what do you want to do? And so it all kind of coalesced.
Oh, very. And you wrote the screenplay as well.
Right.
Now, how was that? And, you know, this guy is a triple threat because before he did any of this, he was an actor, right? Had a full career as an actor before you got into getting behind the camera. Was it daunting to adapt this? Because Walter, I know Walter a little bit.
You know,
he can be tough.
But you know what? He was, because he had gone through such an ordeal at Universal, he was kind of hands off. He acknowledged that this was a medium that he was not familiar with, and they had led him down such a bad path, and he had had such a bad experience that he was basically, you know, you go ahead and you do it, and you know, and he never interfered. And then he actually liked what we ended up doing, which, you know, was cool.
So, what was your take on this? Because you knew about film noir. I've read that you were a fan of a lot of the old movies, that you'd seen the Chandler adaptations and stuff. What I particularly like about this movie, as opposed to the way some other directors have approached doing a 40s film set in LA, is it feels very organic to me in this film, and that the period details aren't forced in any way. It's like you're just right there, this is the way it was. And I think that Tak Fujimoto's cinematography is quite brilliant in this film. So just give us a little taste of how you envisioned bringing this period to the screen.
Well, one of the things that I thought is, as opposed to, you know, the conventions of noir, oftentimes, you know, the shafts of light coming through the blinds, et cetera, and, you know, we decided not to go for the kind of aesthetic form, but we felt that would take care of itself if we approached it as social realism. And so what we did was we realized that, okay, this is right after World War II. People didn't have a lot of money, or they were starting to make money, but it was like people had been through the war. So all the vehicles are much older. You know, you see occasionally you'll see somebody with a car that was from 1946 or 47, but most of all the cars are from the 30s and older, to give it a sense of you know, some kind of depth. We decided not to use a lot of filters and to try to selectively shoot the colors that exist in the film. And the only real, you know, vivid color was the blue dress. And basically we beat down the wardrobe and made it so that it had a kind of a faded look on its own.
All right, then I'll pay you for them. I'll give you $1,000.
And I was basically, with Tak said, look, I wanted to kind of feel like The Big Sleep with pools of light, you know, and so we, you know, don't blast the light on the characters and oftentimes have them in shadow and whatever. And he was just a, you know, Tak is just a genius, you know, when it comes to lighting.
Yeah. As you will say. So I always ask this question, how many people in the audience have not seen this movie before? Okay, that's a mix. That's like a half and half. That's pretty good. So anything else you want to tell these people before we see the movie? Carl and I are going to come back after the film and discuss it. We don't want to get too deep into it and perhaps spoil something for those of you who haven't seen the movie. And there's lots of other stuff I want to ask Carl as well about the business in general. So stick around after the film, because we will be back. But anything else you want to leave the audience with before we start the show?
I hope you like it.
Okay, so let's start out just by talking a little bit about Denzel.
I'll be in touch, Mr. Carter.
Because he is such a freaking movie star in this movie. He is like the sexiest man on earth, I think, in this movie, okay? I'm sure there are many people in the audience that are agreeing with me on this, you know. But and how about Jennifer Beals? Because she had done Flashdance and she had a thing going on.
Hello, Mr. Rollins.
She went down to Lake Charles, Louisiana, and studied the accent, spent some time with the people.
I don't know if I should think of you as a friend of Coretta's or as a private dick.
I mean, everybody committed. You know, everybody got into the history of it, which was really exciting. You know, Don, of course.
You got blood on my coat, Easy. It's a damn expensive coat.
Everybody. You know, it was really a special time.
Where's your bathroom at, man? Is it in there?
One of the connections to classic Hollywood in this film is the score by Elmer Bernstein. So how did that come about?
Gary Getzman, who was one of the executive producers, and Gary's kind of a music guy. I think he had done a U2 video. He'd worked on that with Jonathan Demme, Rattle and Hum, I think it was. He supplied me with a lot of music from the time, which I played while I was writing it. And he suggested Elmer Bernstein, that I take a look at him. And you're always worried about the whole, phase of it when it comes to the music, because they can reinterpret the movie totally. And if you get somebody who's like really a star in their own right, they sometimes decide that, what their contribution is more important than the movie itself. So I was concerned about that. So I met Elmer, and Elmer, I liked him, and I thought, yeah, okay, this is the guy. And when I went home, on my machine, you had the old answer machines at the time, Elmer had started to work on the score. He was that excited that he played something on the piano. It was great.
He left on your phone machine.
But Elmer's a trip, though, man. He was going off to work with Michael Jackson and ELO. I mean, he was still very happening at the time. He was in his 80s.
So what was it like to make this film? Because I read somewhere that you said you were a fan of like the old Murder My Sweet was a film that impressed you early on. Do you feel like you have a particular affinity for this kind of story?
Well,
How much of your heart was in this, Carl?
A lot of my heart was in it, because even though it was already, in development at Universal, we came up on it independently. My wife saw it at a bookstore and liked the title, and at the time she was losing her house, and so she got, excited about it, because it was a theme that she could relate to. And then I read it, and I liked it a lot. But, Murder My Sweet and Farewell My Lovely and Chinatown were all movies that I really loved. I mean, I don't know how many times I've seen Chinatown. Anytime it's on, I actually, at a class at AFI, studied that script for a month in a class. Yeah, it's an incredibly well-written script.
When you started in the business, I mean, you started as an actor, but did you always have the idea that I want to make movies?
No, in fact, I saw a psychic it's interesting. I saw a psychic in '77 who told me that I was going to be a director, and I thought she was telling me what I wanted to hear. And I had no desire at that point to be a director. I wanted to push my career as an actor. In fact, that's why I started writing. That's why I tried to make a movie, with a guy. It was, we wrote the script together. I mortgaged my house. He was going to direct it, I was going to act in it, and he kind of burned me, So that's what sent me to the AFI, so I could learn how to do that, because I still had the bug. But no, I didn't have any desire at that point to make movies. I kind of started to feel that it was toward, I started to get that bug. It was interesting when Stallone did Rocky and, created that role for himself. I thought I would do that with a staple like a suspense terror movie and make myself as the lead and whatever. And I got action on the
Billy
script.
Bob did
Like
with
Billy Bob did with
Sling
Sling
Blade,
Blade, yeah. And I got action on the script, but they kept saying, African American lead or black lead, means that it's not going to play as many booking dates, and so they wouldn't, I could never do that. But that made me just want to really do it, and that's when I started to want to direct, and that was kind of toward the end of my acting career, but by that time I wasn't really that interested in it anymore.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to tell you something that I hope amuses you. A couple of years ago, I did an interview with Roger Corman, and I was, of course, politely talking all about Corman's wonderful career, but then I said, this guy really is going to go down in history as the greatest discoverer of talent and nurturer of talent. And I went through the litany of filmmakers that have gone through the Corman studio, right? Peter Bogdanovich and Scorsese. I mean, it's endless. And he's sitting right on the stage. He says, and don't forget Carl Franklin.
Oh, sweet, sweet, sweet.
So what was your experience like with Roger? Don't tell me something bad now.
No, I was at the AFI, and at the first year you do these little kind of exercises, in video, and they tell you not to show them. Well, everybody shows them, And I got an opportunity. There was someone who saw one of my, little exercises and sent it over to Corman. And he had, he hadn't seen it, but he had these producers who saw it, and they said, "Hey, man, you can go over and direct a movie in the Philippines." Well, the problem was once I got there, I realized that I was there because nobody else wanted to be there. There was an active, rebellion going on with the New People's Army, and I mean, it was like, it was a very dangerous situation that I walked into. Yeah, but Roger, the thing when you worked with him, he would let you, he'd let you make a movie. But the kind of mantra that you had was the same thing that he said to Ron Howard, which is, if you do a good job for me, kid, you'll never have to work for me again.
Yeah,
that's true. What we all kind of kept in our heads,
It's pretty classic. Okay, if any of you have questions, specific questions for Carl about this film or anything else, here is your opportunity.
This is my first time seeing the film, and I enjoyed it immensely, so well done. I had a couple of small questions related to sound. In the scene where they find the body, I noticed you used the Life of Riley playing in the background. I was wondering where that inspiration came from, and also how logistically did you go about shooting the phone conversations? Because the timing of the actors was superb, so I was curious how that happened.
Well, The Life of Riley was a show that was popular at that time. I guess that was the advent of television, really, and so it was one of the few shows that was on in 1948. I guess it was on. We were pretty accurate about that. I'm not sure what you mean about the other question.
Phone conversation?
About the phone conversation. Oh, what we did was we actually hooked the phone up and had them speaking to the other character.
That was it.
I hope you have good news for me.
Oh, Mr. Albright, that you?
Sure is, Easy. What's shaking?
A lot of people do that now, but I mean, it's a really good way of getting a good performance, because otherwise you've got like a script supervisor or someone else, first AD, or somebody else is on the phone, and they don't have the same inflections or the same commitment to the material as an actor would.
Mr. Albright.
That's one, negative about older films, is like a lot of the movies we're going to show this week, you're going to be able to tell that there is nobody on the other end of the phone. Okay? I mean, that's just the way they did it back then. It's like ... then proceed, and it's like, So I'm glad you appreciate when it looks well done and correct, yeah.
All right, we've got another question back here.
I was just curious, there's a lot of good Easy Rollins novels. I wonder if you'd ever thought about doing another one, or...
When we made this one, we had optioned all three, the three existing books at the time, which was Devil in a Blue Dress, Red Death, and White Butterfly, with the intent of doing all of them. But several things happened. The executives at TriStar who greenlit the film and were there through the shooting of the film were not there when it was released, and so it kind of was somebody else's kid, when the new regime came in. Plus, this genre, I mean, we're all here tonight because we like film noir, but it is not a genre that is a big box office draw. Chinatown is wonderful of a film as it is, I should say, as great of a film as it is, was not a big box office movie. L.A. Confidential kind of made some money after it got awards, but it wasn't either. It's just not, for some reason, something that people rush out to be the first on their block to see. It usually takes some time, and it takes people. I mean, that's part of the problem, because a more mature audience is kind of more into film noir. And, we don't necessarily, when you're an adult and you have kids and you have other responsibilities, you don't feel like you have to be the first on your block to stand in that long line to watch a movie. The money in a kid's pocket is liquid. It's there to be spent. And so that's why the industry is going more toward them, because one, you got the kid, you got his parents, you got the toys, you got them coming to see it many, many times. They're going to want to, there's a whole business that's associated with movies that make money, make a lot of money. And film noir is for people who just like cinema.
That's us.
Yeah.
Well, and it this is kind of a fascinating point because people, look, I got a TV show, right? I got a weekly TV show about film noir. And people refer to the film noir renaissance because we do these festivals all over the country now. But the truth is, in Hollywood, if you put noir, if you tag that on a script or something, they shove it right off the top of the desk. They don't want to hear about it, Personally, I think this is like a no-brainer for a series of films, but what I think killed it was that it was a period piece, and that Hollywood is just like, no way, we're not going to do a period piece. We want Denzel Washington today, we want The Equalizer, we want Training Day Denzel Washington now, not 40s Denzel Washington, as unbelievably hot as he is in the movie. It's like, really? You can't see that? Anyway, so.
We've got another question back here.
I was curious, the character who keeps coming to chop down Easy's tree, beyond just sort of comic relief, what was the significance of that character, especially towards the ending?
I'm gonna knock down some of them trees in the back
leave my trees alone.
I ain't gonna take
Leave my trees. Get on.
In the book, the Easy character is a little bit of an anti-noir figure in a lot of ways because, most noir guys are cynical from the beginning and then they teach you that the world is cynical. Easy starts out as an innocent who then goes through this subterranean journey where the cogs and the pulleys of the real American dream exist and comes out the other end. But in the end, if you read the book, it's like kind of an uplifting ending. Well, I needed, in order for that to have that emotional swell at the end, you had to plant the seeds somehow of what it is that he is fighting for. And it was his house and his neighborhood. And I needed something active so that by the end of it, you would see that he's accomplished that and there would be that emotion. And, in neighborhoods, especially in poor neighborhoods, there's always that signature of the neighborhood. There's that crazy guy who, is a nuisance. But if anything ever happened to that guy, everybody would be upset because he's the signature. And so that's really why I invented that character, so that we could have that emotional swell at the end, which you have in the book. Because my interest was somehow trying to replicate the emotional impact that I felt when I read Walter's book. And that meant that sometimes you have to do some things in order to do that. I mean, there were several departures that we made. The character of, what's his name? I'm trying to remember now, man. The cat who was like running for mayor, who was Carter. Carter was a kingmaker in the book. He wasn't running for mayor. It was only suggested about Matthew Turan, as he was called in the book, about the child pornography. We had to make that active so that there was, and Daphne Monet in the book was already out of the picture with Carter, and for some reason was hanging around. Somehow you can't do that in film. You can get away with it in a book, but it's hard to do that because in film, in a book, the conflicts oftentimes are within the character, but in a film, it's between the characters because you want to see the visual, dynamics. So that was the reason for that.
Okay, we've got time for one more question.
In some ways, you answered the question that I was going to ask about some of the changes that you make from the novel to the film. In particular, though, I'm curious about why taking out the romance between Easy and Daphne.
In order to, again, make things active, I needed for the romance between Carter and Daphne, which was, in the book we talk about her being in love with Carter, and she's upset because they gave her money to basically scram to get out of town. Well, that became the active ingredient for us. That became the thing that drove the story. Why is she still around? Why is she not left if, in fact, she's already been given this money, as she was in the book, to leave, and there was no chance of a relationship with her and Carter? Again, because you want to see the conflict between the characters. So because that relationship, the story hinged on that relationship, if she had a relationship with Easy, then the relationship with Carter has no value. So we took that out because all it was in the book was basically kind of a dalliance. It wasn't as though that was the major relationship. And had we had her have a relationship with Easy, we would not have had any investment at all in her having a relationship with Carter.
Thanks a million. Ladies and gentlemen, Carl Franklin.